Hi, Get UNSTUCK Nation. Today, please welcome Natsune Oki from LifeUpEducationTV. You know, I'm from Thailand and Natsune is from Japan. So today we will share a little bit about our experience working with expats from other country and also bringing the knowledge back to the home country as well. So let me introduce you about Natsune a little bit. Natsune is the host of Life Up Education TV. She's an author of the book called The Game of Self Domination, which we will talk a little bit about that. Very interesting. And she also managing director of an international project management service called ForeignConnect. Thank you so much for joining Get UNSTUCK Radio today, Natsune.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me today. I'm very excited.
Yeah, so before we get started on any entrepreneur journey though, can you tell me a little bit how your entrepreneur journey have started?
Yeah, so I think the whole life I have kind of being entrepreneur-ish. It's only that I gained my courage to become one after. Actually, let me start over. So when I was a student, I decided to study business, not knowing what I was about to get into. I didn't know what I wanted to do. But during that time, I had to taste it. I had to taste what it's like to actually work in American working environment, because I have to remind you, I was an international student with broken language, a broken English. I didn't even have a degree at the time. But I gained my courage to go to America first, right? And I think that decision itself is kind of show the sign of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial person, because you have that initiatives, you have that leadership, you have that courage to do something even if you're scared, right? So that was probably one of the earliest sign of me being kind of entrepreneurial tendency, right? Having that entrepreneurial tendency. And going further, I decided that I wanted to take some time off from school, and regardless of all the odds, because like I said, it just didn't make sense for any companies to hire me at the time. I was not an asset because I didn't speak English at the time. I didn't even have a degree. I was super young, teenager, So it just didn't make sense. But I still had this urge inside of me that I needed to see what it was like to compete against other actual American, local people, to get a job in a foreign country where I don't even speak the language, right? So I think that's the second wave, I guess, the second sign of me being very entrepreneurial, a risk taker kind of tendency, right? And actually what I ended up with is, I don't know how to describe it, but I was very attracted to that concept of entrepreneurship at the time already. So what I ended up doing during that period is actually I picked up some jobs around marketing in the environment where I could meet a lot of entrepreneurs and investors. And at the time I was in Seattle. So the tech community was very big over there. So I ended up working in that environment as a marketer, and got to work with a lot of companies who do for example, acceleration for startups, right? So I got to meet a lot of entrepreneurs, and it really inspired me of how I look at the world, my framework of how I'm perceiving the world, because these leaders that I worked with or worked for at the time were thinking about how exciting the possibility of technology was, to how it was advancing the capability of a human. So the life standard was even changing because of the technology, right? And so it was beyond business excitement. It was excitement for the humanity. And that was what drove me essentially to start my media, Life Up Education TV. That comes later. But yeah, so at the time, what I noticed was I was very interested in people. I'm very interested in business, entrepreneurship, especially because there's that characteristic that I really like about being entrepreneur. But at the same time, I wasn't very driven by money. I was driven more by people. I cared a lot more about what the impact I can create on people. That's why my interest entrance point was technology, right? And so going back to school, I decided to study economics instead of business, because in economics, it's not only you're studying about money, but you're studying about government, you're studying about education, you're studying about like people matter as well. And that period further nurtured my interest in like how I can create like ultimate impact in my way to the possibility, like to maximize the potential of humanity. Like, and then as I mentioned, that kind of became the form that it became today, which is Life Up Education TV, because I noticed that I'm very good with like a media. I had this admiration for becoming a media person, and also I'm good with like talking to people, understanding people. So that's how Life Up Education TV came. And so I feel like I'm talking forever, but I'm gonna cut it short. So basically, after that school period, I took another very courageous move, which was to move from Seattle to move to the opposite side of the country, Florida. So Washington to Florida, once again, not knowing no one. I didn't know where to work at. I didn't know nobody, like nothing, right? Like I didn't even have a place to live, but I still did it. And eventually I found some position with doing like a business consulting, or I guess I was doing like digital marketing in a consulting company, in a business consulting company. And coming back to Japan, after some time, I came back to Japan, and I was still selling the service from that previous company. And basically what I found out was like, I could just sell their service here and provide project management service myself, like to the Japanese clients. So that's how ForeignConnect was formed, because at some point I decided that it made more sense for me to just go independently and just form my own thing and do what I was already doing at the time. So that's how the two things I'm involved with came to today, which is Life Up Education TV and ForeignConnect.
So your book name is
The Game of Self Domination.
Domination. I think it's kind of like related to the story that you just mentioned to me and to the audience today about how you discover what you actually want in your life and how you achieving it, right? So how would you describe to master yourself and able to recognize these traits and decide that this is your path today of what you are doing?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things I talk about is self-awareness, and actually it might be better or easier for people to understand if I just describe or give you the overview of how the book is formed. It consists of 3 different phases. I talk about how you can practically achieve anything you want in very like practical standpoint. So in the first phase I talk about is how someone can create a dream. And in this phase, all I talk about is emotion. Emotion building is needed, because if you're logical in this phase, you will never try, right? Like, because you will always have some kind of reason why it is not a good timing or why it is not good for you to do it now. So in the first phase, all we talk about is emotion. And what I notice here in this phase is that you need 2 things. One is desperation. Desperation in a sense that you have to be at the place where you feel like so sick of where you are right now. So emotion is so strong enough that you just need to change something and you have no other option. And you also need to have inspiration, and your inspiration needs to exceed your desperation. So your inspiration, what do I mean? What I mean is really exactly how it sounds. Like you need to have something that really pulls you up. So you need to have 2 factors in there, motivating factor. And then the second phase I talk about is self-awareness, back to your question, right? And in this phase, we talk a lot about let's redefine who you are in relation to what you do. And actually, I bring up 2 concepts to talk about that. One is from ancient Greek philosopher, Aristotle. And then the second one is from a philosophical concept of reason of being called the Ikigai from Japan. Mm-hmm. And we will kind of give you different examples and perspectives for you to go through this phase. And then the third phase is let's let's redefine what the success means, because in the second phase, along with defining what you want, who you are, we also talk a lot about, let's understand failure and rejections as they are, like with some logics, because those are very emotional experiences. And a lot of people fail because they can't gain that resilience when they face hardships. And part of the reason why is because they take everything very emotionally. And I understand it. Like, I'm not saying that that's bad or anything like that. Like, we all do that. But in this book, we focus a lot about, like, you know, having that high sense of emotional intelligence and really understanding what's going on with some high sense of logics, and then really help you to gain that courage and resilience to get back on your track. And then the third phase, again, because we redefine the failure and rejections and hardships, now it's time for us to talk about happiness. So in the third phase, our conclusion really talks about, so what is happiness? Like, why we even exist, you know? So back to your question, I think mastering yourself matters. Like, self-awareness definitely matters because it creates resilience. But at the same time, that's not the 100% of the picture. I think the reason I wanted to bring up the whole process, that whole phase, was because on the third phase, when I talked about happiness, basically it connects back to the beginning statement of, like, look, like, we don't know, right? Like, we don't know what is right or what is wrong. And actually, it's a foolish thing for people to try to guess what is right or what is wrong answer, because there's no such thing. But what matters is the growth that you get out of your journey, the resilience, sometimes I also talk about self-love. And one thing I notice about self-love is, like, you earn it. Self-love doesn't just happen. You earn the self-love by doing the hard thing and keep doing the hard things. So back to your question, I guess, self-awareness is important because it allows you to have that resilience. But at the same time, that's not the 100% picture when it comes to talking about happiness. Like, we don't even know what's the right answer is, right? But in the end of the day, it is super uncomfortable to be in that spot knowing that there's no right answer. But that's just called life. Like, that is what the life is about, And what we can control is then really to try to enjoy the journey as much as we can, and focus on the growth, focus on the positivity, like focus on the good thing side of the journey, So yeah, that kind of like goes back to your question. And I guess the reason I wanted to bring up the third phase.
I think to say like that would be like, how to say that, sounds easy for anyone, but of course entrepreneurship is not easy, and it's also sometimes lonely as well. So could you share your struggle and how you overcome it along the way until you become success as where you are right now?
This episode is sponsored by Mutita Clothing, like what I'm wearing right here. So if you are a petty sized lady who are looking for high quality apparels as well as a neat cutting and premium pattern, check it out at mutitaclothing.com so that you can be simply elegant by no time. Let's get back to the episode.
Yeah. And actually, I feel like I'm not doing it for the destination. I mean, of course, there's that side of me that like have some sort of benchmark in order for me to be productive. But at the same time, like every day is hard for me today. Like all I hear is no's. And I think that's where people get wrong is like, it's not you achieve one goal and until then it's like super hard, like you could also lose everything you have tomorrow, and entrepreneurship is like, I think it's about like owning all of your failures and still having to come back tomorrow to try to build everything up again. Mm. And like you said, like there's a tremendous stress to it. But at the same time, I think we could lose. It would be a very burnable place if we only do it for the trophy, if we only do it for the success, I think the number one, I guess, secret or the number one rule here is you do it because you don't know how else, like you don't know what else to do. Like you do it for the process. You're not doing it for the trophy, because like I said, like you can literally lose, regardless of how much you have been successful until yesterday, it wouldn't matter. Like you could lose it, everything, lose it tomorrow. Then what are you gonna do? Like if all of your like willingness is literally only tied with whatever you have, then you're not gonna be able to get back up again, you know? So I think the only way for someone to be happy during the process is to love the process of hearing the no's and just enjoying that stretching, like enjoying that stress, but at the same time, like you can be best self, like at all the time, you know, because you just don't have any other option. So yeah, for me, that's how I kind of see it.
You know what? After I have been speaking with like hundreds of entrepreneurs, what I discover is actually to have to like, okay, let me put it this way. To have a goal is good. At least you have the purpose. But then to have a feeling of you still survive and figure out how to survive each day is actually give you more sustainable in entrepreneur journey rather than keep chasing the goal instead. So that is something that very fascinated. Like we really not aiming for that trophy at all, but actually we aiming to heal our own curiosity and just want to make something new that like make us feel excited every single day. Therefore, we still in this journey along the way. On the other hand, those who chasing the trophy thought that start a business will give them a millionaire status, for example. They might not stick for a long time. They might able to make it. They might not, and they would blame that this is not work for them. But like you said, even though we failed, before I failed many businesses, I still here and I still trying to make it work. Like as exactly what you say. And I think that because I don't know what to do else.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's true. Kind of like one of the way. But to talk about happiness though, I think it's like there are many factors involved, as you mentioned. Like if we talk about Ikigai, it's going to be like a lot that involved, right? Until we find that sweet spot in the middle. And to get back to the self-domination though, do you think it's a game that you play alone with yourself or you play as a team?
So the reason I have the word the game is because actually I thought of it from a different approach. So the game, I wanted to kind of defer life as a game because like you said, right? Like we all fail, but like if there's a game, there's a winner and there's a loser. And that's okay. Competition is healthy, in my opinion. And the game, the same thing. Like you can get up as many times, you can take as many failures as you want. Only thing that really matters is can you keep going? Like even if you are hurt, even if you fail so many times, like can you come back? And the logic behind competition is very, very simple, actually. Whoever wants it more wins in the end, you know?
Yeah.
So I kind of see the game part is referring to the life, like, can you come back, right? And then self-domination again. I think literally the number one key to come back to the field, the game, is discipline, like the self-domination, the discipline, like really understanding how to create the discipline. And, you know, there's actually something interesting that I wanted to bring up because we brought up the domination part now, is that, so there's this track sound that I listen to when I do like workout. And there's this one from Elon Musk, like mashup of his inspirational words. And he says, if you need inspirational word for you to pursue your dream, don't do it. And I think about it a lot. I think that's what it is that like, it really comes down to discipline when we talk about resilience. I think a lot of us tend to point finger at like, this dream is not working. Like, I can't find what I really want to do, or blah, blah, blah. I think what they are lacking is patience too, and discipline, because these are very big factors. And I think, like I said, like many times it's only the courage that people are missing of like pursuing their dream, and not so much of like, I can't find the right thing to do, because we all don't know in the end of the day what we're doing, right? Like in the core, but it's just a matter of having that courage being placed, and also as a leader, someone who wants to like create something, right? Like it's the nature thing. And then the second thing that's very, very important is the resilience, the discipline, the being able to like bring yourself back to the game even if you fail. So yeah, that's why I refer the book as the game of self-domination.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very important. Like, it's always important that if you have to wait until someone to motivate you, it means that you can't carry on with yourself at all. You have to wait for someone all the time, and that's not how you survive in this game, really. So, Nate, in case anyone want to follow your work and know more about you, where can they reach out to you then?
Yes, so my media is, I guess my name is Natsune Oki, just in case anyone missed it. My media is called the LifeUpEducationTV, and my book is called The Game of Self Domination. And people can buy my book from Amazon, or my website also has a link to buy the book. And I am pretty active on social media in the order of YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And what else? But I'm really everywhere, but I am active, especially on YouTube and TikTok. And what else? Oh yes. So ForeignConnect, that is B2B business. We help companies who want to come to Japan to do anything from market research, marketing, digital marketing, and project management as a consulting. So if anyone wants to like learn more about it, you can also reach me at natsune@ForeignConnect.org. The website is ForeignConnect.org.
Yeah, awesome. So all of the details will be in the description, everyone. And yeah, please check out the book, The Game of Self Domination. I think you may get some ideas after you have heard our conversation right here, and it may inspire you to keep going to get what you want in life and have a joyful life. Thank you so much, Natsune, for joining Get UNSTUCK Radio today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hey, thank you for watching this episode. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe here or here. And this is the previous episode. Check it out. See you next time.